The silence in a 12-year marriage isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it's a structural defect, a hairline fracture in the foundation that you choose to ignore until the entire roof caves in. My name is Elias Thorne. In the high-stakes world of Chicago architecture, I'm known for designing structures that withstand the brutal Midwestern winters and the test of time. I thought I had applied those same principles to my marriage with Sarah. We lived in a custom-built glass and steel masterpiece in Naperville, Illinois. It was the kind of home that made people slow down their cars as they drove past. Sarah was a high-end interior designer, the kind of woman who could look at a swatch of gray fabric and tell you exactly which weaver in Belgium produced it. She was meticulous, elegant, and possessed an eye for detail that I found intoxicating. I trusted her vision. I never realized that while she was perfecting the aesthetic of our life together, she was also meticulously designing a back door out of it. It started with the yoga. For a decade, Sarah's idea of exercise was a brisk walk to a brunch spot. Then suddenly it was a spiritual awakening. 3 nights a week, Saturday mornings, and the occasional weekend intensive in the city. She looked healthier than ever, but her eyes were always somewhere else, focused on a horizon I couldn't see. She would come home smelling of expensive essential oils, her hair perfectly damp, speaking in platitudes about finding her center and realigning her chakras. At the time, I was happy for her. I thought she had finally found a way to manage the stress of her demanding clients. And I didn't realize her center was miles away from our home. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Here on Family Secrets and Revenge, we know that even the most beautiful homes can hide the darkest secrets. It was a Tuesday in late October. The Chicago wind was whipping the last of the orange leaves against our floor-to-ceiling windows. Sarah was preparing for her 6 p.m. power flow session. She was dressed in charcoal leggings and a zip-up that cost more than my first car. She kissed my cheek, a dry, practiced motion that felt more like a business transaction than an expression of love, and grabbed her mat. I watched her white Tesla Model 3 pull out of the driveway, the silent hum of the electric motor disappearing into the twilight. I stayed behind in my home office, buried under blueprints for a new library in Aurora. The project was behind schedule, and the pressure was mounting. About an hour into my work, I reached for my iPad to check a 3D rendering of the library's atrium, only to realize I'd left it in the center console of Sarah's Tesla after our Sunday lunch at the country club. I didn't think much of it. I simply opened the Tesla app on my phone to check the car's location. I figured if she was still at Serene Mind Yoga, I'd take a quick walk over. It was only 6 blocks away, and grab the iPad so I could finish my work before she got home. But when the map loaded, the little red arrow wasn't at the yoga studio. It wasn't even in Naperville. It was parked at a trailhead in Blackwell Forest Preserve, nearly 12 miles in the opposite direction. I stared at the glowing screen of my phone, the blue dot representing my location and the red arrow representing hers. Maybe the GPS was lagging. Technology is incredible, but it isn't infallible. I refreshed the app. I closed it and reopened it. The arrow stayed pinned to the deep woods of the preserve, far from any paved road or commercial building. A cold, hollow feeling began to bloom in my chest, a sensation of vertigo as if the floor of my office had suddenly tilted. There are no yoga studios in the middle of a forest preserve at 7:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was pitch black out there, the kind of darkness that swallowed sound. I checked the car's status through the app. Locked. Interior temperature, 68 degrees. Sentry mode, active. Everything was technically normal, except for the fact that my wife was supposed to be sweating in a room full of suburban professionals, and instead, her car was sitting in a gravel lot surrounded by 500 acres of oak trees in silence. I watched that little red arrow for 45 minutes. My mind went to the darkest places first. Was she hurt? Had she been carjacked? I almost called 911, my thumb hovering over the dial. But then, at 8 p.m., the car began to move. It didn't head toward the yoga studio to finish class or grab a post-workout juice. It headed straight back toward our neighborhood, moving at a steady 35 miles per hour. When Sarah pulled into the driveway at 8:30 p.m., I was sitting in the dark kitchen, a single glass of scotch on the island, untouched. The headlights of the Tesla swept across the room like searchlights in a prison yard. She walked through the door, glowing with a light sheen of perspiration, tossing her keys onto the marble countertop with a satisfying clack. She looked refreshed, energized, vibrant. "How was class?" I asked. My voice sounded foreign to me. Too controlled, too hollow, like it was coming from a speaker in another room. "Intense," she sighed, pulling her hair out of a ponytail and letting it cascade over her shoulders. "The instructor, Marcus, really pushed us today. We did a lot of hip openers and core work. I'm going to be sore tomorrow for sure." She walked past me, trailing the scent of expensive lavender and something else, something earthy and raw like damp soil and wood smoke. She didn't look at me. She didn't see the phone in my hand, the screen still glowing with the map of the forest preserve. She lied with such casual, effortless grace that I felt a surge of genuine nausea. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. Do you think Elias should have confronted her right there with the phone in his hand? Or was he right to play it cool and see how deep the root of the lie went? I waited until Sarah was in the shower, the steam filling the master bathroom and the sound of the high-pressure water masking my movements. I didn't go for her phone. She kept that locked with Face ID and never let it out of her sight, even when she slept. I went for the source. I grabbed my laptop and logged into our shared Tesla account. Because our insurance, home utilities, honor and vehicle registrations were all linked under a family trust, I had administrative access to the vehicle's full telemetry and trip history. I exported the data into an Excel spreadsheet, my eyes blurring as the rows of data populated. This wasn't a one-time meditation hike. It was a pattern, a meticulous, scheduled betrayal. For the last 4 months, every Tuesday and Thursday, the car had bypassed the yoga studio entirely. Sometimes it went to Blackwell Forest Preserve. Other times it spent hours at a luxury apartment complex in Oak Brook. And twice a month, on Saturday mornings, it made a long trek to a private, gated residence in Geneva, Illinois. I looked up the address in Geneva. My blood turned to ice. The property was owned by a holding company, but the primary resident listed on the tax rolls was Julian Vane. Julian Vane. The name felt like a physical weight in my stomach. 3 years ago, Vane and I had been locked in a brutal, public legal battle over a waterfront development project. He was a developer who played fast and loose with environmental codes and labor laws, and I was the architect who blew the whistle. It cost him a $14 million contract and his reputation in the city. He had looked me in the eye in the hallway of the Daily Center and told me he'd find a way to take back what I'd stolen from him. And now my wife's car was parked in his driveway every other Saturday morning. The betrayal took on a new jagged shape. If she was having an affair, that was a heartbreak. But if she was seeing him, it was a conspiracy. Sarah knew what Vane had tried to do to me. She had seen the stress, the late-night phone calls with lawyers, and the toll it took on my health. To find out she was even in the same zip code as Julian Vane felt like a second whistling of the blade. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in Elias's story and share your thoughts in the comments. Is the betrayal of the heart worse than the betrayal of the career, or are they one and the same when it's your spouse? I didn't confront her that night. I didn't even mention Julian Vane's name. I realized that if I was going to fight a man like Vane, I couldn't do it with a broken heart. I had to do it with a cold mind. I spent the next 48 hours in a state of hyper-vigilant calm. To Sarah, I was the same Elias, preoccupied with blueprints and zoning laws. To myself, I was a man preparing for a demolition. On Thursday, where Sarah announced she had a special weekend workshop in downtown Chicago. She claimed a famous yogi from the West Coast was flying in, and she'd likely stay overnight at a boutique hotel to fully immerse herself in the practice. Usually, I would have sent her a bouquet of lilies to the hotel. This time, I told her I had an emergency site visit in Denver and would be gone until Sunday. I didn't go to O'Hare. Instead, I went to a budget car rental agency on the outskirts of the city. I bypassed the luxury SUVs and chose a metallic gray Ford Fusion, the most invisible car in America. I parked it 3 blocks away from our driveway and waited. I felt like a predator in my own neighborhood, watching my wife emerge from our front door at 4 p.m. She wasn't carrying a yoga mat. She was carrying a designer weekend bag I'd never seen before. One, and she was wearing a red silk dress that she once told me was too much for our anniversary dinner. I followed the Tesla at a safe distance. The beauty of the Tesla's autopilot is that it makes the driver predictable. She stayed perfectly centered in the lane, maintaining a constant speed, blissfully unaware that the gray ghost behind her was her husband. She didn't head for the city. She headed for the luxury apartment complex in Oak Brook I had seen in the logs. I watched from the back of a nearby grocery store parking lot as she pulled into the gated entrance. A man was waiting for her by the fountain. It wasn't Julian Vane. This man was younger, mid-20s, athletic, wearing a fitted tech vest and expensive sneakers. He looked like the kind of guy who spent more time at the gym than at a desk. The sight of them together was a physical blow. They didn't just greet each other, they collided. The way she reached for the back of his neck, the way he pulled her in, it was a level of intimacy that had been missing from our bedroom for years. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in Elias's story and share your thoughts in the comments. Is it the fact that she's with a stranger or the fact that she's using your life to fund this new one? I spent that night in the rental car, parked in a spot where I could see the glow of the apartment window. I had my laptop open, tethered to a mobile hotspot. If Sarah was seeing this young man in Oak Brook and Julian Vane in Geneva, there had to be a connection. I started digging into our firm's server. As a partner, and I had God mode access to every file, but Sarah had her own encrypted partition for her design clients. I spent 6 hours brute forcing the password. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, the name of her childhood dog. Nothing. Then on a whim, I typed in the coordinates of the Blackwell Forest Preserve trailhead. The folder clicked open. It wasn't filled with fabric swatches or furniture layouts. It was filled with PDF scans of my proprietary architectural renderings, blueprints for the new municipal stadium, the downtown high-rise projects, and the private estate I was designing for a tech mogul. But next to my original files were V2 versions. Someone had altered the structural requirements to make them cheaper, less safe, and easier to underbid. The metadata on the edits pointed to a user named JV_consulting, Julian Vane. And the betrayal was expanding like a gas leak. It wasn't just an affair, it was a corporate hit job. Sarah wasn't just sleeping with a younger man, she was using him as a courier to pass physical documents and flash drives. I followed the money next. I accessed our joint emergency fund and found it intact. But when I looked at the business ledger for Thorne and Associates, I noticed a series of recurring payments to a shell company called Indigo Zen Interiors. I had always assumed it was one of her high-end vendors, but Indigo Zen didn't have a warehouse or a showroom. Its registered address was a P.O. box in Geneva. Over the last 18 months, Sarah had funneled over $420,000 into that account. My hard-earned capital was being used to subsidize Julian Vane's failing developments and her own secret lifestyle. I felt a strange sense of clarity. The grief was gone, replaced by a cold architectural precision. If she wanted to redesign our life, I was going to give her a total renovation. Friday morning, I didn't call her. I didn't send a "How is the workshop?" text. Instead, I drove back to the city and met with two people, a forensic accountant who specialized in white-collar crime and a divorce attorney known as the Great Wall of Chicago. "Elias," the attorney said, looking over the files, "this isn't just a divorce. This is a racketeering case. She's helping a competitor steal trade secrets while laundering money through a fake interior design firm. If we play this right, she won't just lose the house. She'll lose her freedom." I spent the rest of the day setting the load-bearing traps. I didn't freeze the accounts yet. I didn't want to spook her. Instead, I leaked a dummy blueprint into the shared folder. It was a design for a massive shopping complex that looked perfect on paper, but contained a catastrophic structural flaw in the foundation calculations. I knew Julian Vane wouldn't be able to resist bidding on it. Saturday arrived. I drove home, returned the rental car, and pulled my own SUV into the garage just as Sarah was returning from her weekend. She looked tired but satisfied, her eyes avoiding mine as she hummed a song I didn't recognize. "How was Denver?" she asked, barely looking up from her phone. Productive, I said. I found exactly what I was looking for. The structural integrity of the project was enlightening. Good, I'm going to take a long soak. That yoga retreat was exhausting. All that mindfulness can really take it out of you. I bet it was, Sarah. I'm working on a new project myself. It's called The Final Inspection. It's going to change everything. If you were in Elias's shoes facing a betrayal that was both personal and professional, would you have the patience to plan a move like this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The following Tuesday arrived with a heavy electric tension in the air. Sarah was going through her usual motions, packing her designer water bottle, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. Heading to Power Flow, I asked, leaning against the kitchen island, swirling a glass of water. You know it, she chirped, her voice light and practiced. Don't wait up for me, Elias. Marcus said we might do an extra long meditation session tonight. I really need to clear my head. I think we both do, I replied. As soon as her Tesla pulled out of the driveway, I followed her, not in a rental this time, but in my own car, staying several blocks behind. She didn't even pretend to head toward the studio. She drove straight to the Blackwell Forest Preserve, but she didn't park at the trailhead this time. She drove deeper toward a secluded maintenance road that was normally gated off. The gate was open. I found them in a clearing near a small, dilapidated ranger station. There were two cars, Sarah's white Tesla and a black Mercedes S-Class. Julian Vane was standing by the hood of his car, looking at a tablet. Sarah was standing next to him, her arm looped through his. But there was a third person, the younger man from the Oak Brook apartment. The bids are in. Julian, I heard Sarah say. Elias thinks he's locked in for the stadium project, but with the modified structural specs you have, your firm will come in 20% lower. He won't know what hit him until the contract is signed. And the Indigo Zen transfer? Vane asked. Another $50,000 cleared this morning, she said. Consider it my investment in our future. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in Elias's story and share your thoughts in the comments. Is the betrayal worse because she's stealing his money or because she's helping his greatest enemy destroy his career? I didn't jump out and scream. I simply took out my phone and hit record. I captured 3 minutes of their conversation, the financial details, the mentions of the stolen blueprints, and the physical affection that proved her infidelity beyond a shadow of a doubt. Then I turned on my flashlight and walked into the clearing. It's a beautiful night for a meditation session, isn't it, Sarah? The silence that followed was absolute. Sarah jumped back from Vane as if he were made of fire. Vane's face went from smug to ghostly pale in less than a second. Elias? What? What are you doing here? Sarah stammered. I'm here for the final inspection, I said, holding up my phone. I've got the GPS logs, the bank statements for Indigo Zen, and now I have this video. Julian, I hope you enjoyed those stadium blueprints. I should probably tell you, I designed a fatal structural flaw into the foundation of that V2 version. If you build that, the whole thing collapses. And since your name is on the bid, you'll be the one going to prison for manslaughter. The panic in Julian Vane's eyes was the most satisfying thing I'd ever seen. He looked at Sarah, then at me, then scrambled into his Mercedes and sped off, leaving her standing in the dirt. Her partner and lover had abandoned her the second the lights came on. Elias, honey, let me explain. She started, moving toward me with her hands out. Stop, I said. Just stop. The us you're talking about never existed. You were building a life on top of mine, Sarah. You were the parasite in the foundation. I've already filed the police report for the embezzlement. The Tesla's Sentry Mode? I downloaded those videos too. Every time you met your yoga instructor in Oak Brook, the car recorded it. The legal battle that followed was a whirlwind. Because of the industrial espionage and the embezzlement of funds tied to federal contracts, the FBI got involved. Sarah was looking at a decade in federal prison. To save herself, she turned state's evidence against Julian Vane. They spent the next year tearing each other apart in court, exactly as I had planned. I won't lie and say it was easy. I lost my home. The glass and steel masterpiece felt tainted, so I sold it and gave the proceeds to a charity that helps victims of domestic financial abuse. I moved to a loft in the West Loop, A place with exposed brick and honest materials. No hidden compartments, no structural lies. If you were in Elias's shoes, facing a betrayal that was both personal and professional, would you have the patience to plan a move like this? Share your thoughts in the comments. Looking back, somewhat the Tesla wasn't the reason I found out. It was just the tool. The reason I found out was because a lie, no matter how well designed, always creates a friction that the truth doesn't have. You can design a beautiful life, you can pick the perfect fabrics and the most elegant excuses, but if the foundation is built on betrayal, it will eventually settle and crack. I'm an architect. I build things to last. And now, for the first time in 12 years, I'm building a life that doesn't need a GPS tracker to feel secure. Thank you so much for watching and staying with us until the end. This story was a wild ride of betrayal, tech, and ultimate justice. If you enjoyed how the truth came to light through the very technology meant to hide it, please hit that like button and subscribe to Family Secrets and Revenge for more deep dives into the shadows of the human heart. Don't forget to share your overall thoughts on Elias's journey in the comments. Did he go too far with his final inspection, or was it the only way to save himself? We'll see you in the next one.